Welcome to the Business Process Operation Simulation game. Here you can experience excellent enterprise education. Okay, now let's have a look at the business processes from the BPOS game. So we have like the OEM, which is played by the instructor. The OEM sends an order to tier number 1, and tiers is kind of like a different name for supplier. Tier 1 sends an order to tier number 2, who's going to send an order to tier 3, and then we're going to send an order to tier 4. Tier 4 is sending an order to more or less tier 5. However, this is kind of like our raw material, and the raw material is kind of like simulated by the system itself. So this is kind of like the information flow, and all the other way around we have the material flow. So the raw material comes to tier 4, tier 4 sends the raw material to tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, and then finally to the OEM. This is kind of like our network what we have. So now let's have a look into kind of like any tier. What are the business processes? So let's assume we have the business processes from tier number 2. So here you have kind of like the a planning function where you have to decide how many products do you expect your customer, in this case it would be tier number 1, to order in the next round. When you have like the order and the planning, how many products are going to be ordered in the next rounds, kind of like a forecast. You can kind of like check if you have enough raw material available. If this is true, you can kind of like start the make process. If not, you have to order products kind of like from your supplier. You have to do the sourcing, and your supplier in the end would be like tier 3. Okay, so if you have enough products, and the planning you have, you don't need to source, or you source depending if enough raw material is available or not. Then you start the production, the operations, and kind of like then you can deliver the products to your customer. So those are the essential processes that we have within a tier. We have on the one way, we have the network, which is connected, and each tier is played by a team of participants, and those are the internal processes: plan, source, make and deliver within a team itself. And here it's kind of like you have to decide on how you distribute the different roles, who is doing what. Okay. For the planning, for example, you can also say it could be like the forecasting, could be like an activity on how to collaborate with your kind of like customers and with your suppliers. Could be something like checking about the risk management, about sustainability that is going on in the game. Also, you could kind of like create dashboards, access the database, and create a lot of information by using the data. And by doing that, you hopefully can take better data-driven decisions. Okay, so now if we know all the processes from one tier, we have to transfer those kind of like processes to our network. And we have all the different or the same processes here, the same with the plan process, we have the sourcing process, we have kind of like the make process, and we have the deliver process. The same is true for all the other kind of like suppliers: plan, source, make and deliver. And you already can see that the different aspects are already connected between each other, and you have kind of like always a connection between the delivery function and the supply function. That's kind of like the connection. Here we have the connection, and I think we still need one for tier 4. We have the plan function, the source, the make and the deliver function. We have the connection, so in total we have kind of like we have like 4 different firms, and they all have the same kind of like processes that are included. Yeah? Okay, so as we already now know the different processes within the firms, you have to kind of like find out who's responsible for what kind of function, for example, who's doing the sourcing, the make, the delivery, and perhaps who's kind of like doing the planning. So that's kind of like the question on internal collaboration, kind of like the, I would call it like the horizontal collaboration within the firm, where you kind of like decide who's doing what. And in addition, besides having kind of like the vertical collaboration, it's a vertical collaboration within the firm, you also have to define and work on a little bit on how do you collaborate within kind of like the network. Yeah? So that's kind of like the function. You always have to think about how can we collaborate with our suppliers and our customers. How do we want our suppliers to be treated, for example? And for example, you could also think about how could you measure the performance of your suppliers. And the other way around for sure, what about your customers? Your customers help you to generate revenues. So you have to kind of like build up a relationship with your customer, and it's kind of like your task to decide on how to do that.